welcome to Fantastic Tones for Human Bones. My name is, as usual, Robert Woods-Ledoux. My co-host, Mark Piscucci Clifford, is, as usual, here with us in the interview.
Hello!
Today we have the ultimate pleasure of speaking with none other than Will Northlich-Redmond. Will?
That's right.
Welcome to the podcast.
That is me.
Will, you are a guitar player, a composer, an electronic musician, and a cool guy.
Well, I hope I can live up to all that, but
I'm going to throw improviser in there. Did we?
Improviser.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, I like to improvise. I do a lot of that.
Yeah. So, Will, I've been kind of, I do listen to your stuff pretty regularly, but it's been cool to kind of go back through a lot of your material and give it a second listen for this interview. I have one suggestion that kind of came up for me.
Sure.
So I was thinking, so your project is called Blipvert. That's your artist.
Well, that's the main gig. That's the main thing that's been going on for years. It's kind of, one might say it's kind of at the core of everything that I do. It formulates the foundation for a lot of other things.
Mm-hmm.
It's the raison d'être, if you will.
Right on. So I have maybe
whatever
one
that
suggestion
means. I don't even
for
know
you.
what that means. But
Reason to be.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So if you want to take your project Blipvert to the next level, and you want to grow your fan base, and you want to start to generate revenue, then and you want to take that money and invest back into Blipvert, and you want to go on tour and build your fan base even more.
Yeah.
And then you get the message out, and you do the marketing, and you do the promotion work, so that you can get the gig, and then you can get into the green room, and then you can get the drink tickets, and then you can have your merch at the merch table, and you can sell your t-shirts. So when someone comes and gets a t-shirt, they get a free copy of your CD, your new CD, which has your new sound, which sounds like this. That was Viridian Riot Cubes.
Viridian Riot Cubes, yeah.
That is cut from your new CD. Is this the final version, what you sent us? Or is this a demo?
That one, yeah, that's the final mix. I added some other little synth hits and some things in there, so that is it. Yeah, that is it.
It's a beautiful song.
Yeah. I won't be going into any green rooms with that stuff. I don't know, maybe.
Well, not with that attitude.
You're well, thank you. I need that.
I have a couple of questions immediately just from watching you listen to that.
Sure.
And it has to do with how you're organize your thinking around making this kind of music. You know this piece inside and out, and I think it's because you've been like probably really deep in mixing and constructing it for a long time now, right? Mm-hmm. Like you were basically conducting that entire thing, which just listening to that, it doesn't seem like that's something where you could have it all organized. Do you sketch these pieces out, or is this an intuitive process in making these?
Yeah, the compositional process behind a lot of this is behind pretty much all of it is stream of consciousness, straight up. We discussed, well, we made light of improvisation. Improvisation is pretty hardcore at the heart of what I do, and even in the compositional realm. So you start. It's funny because the idea that I start with for a piece is often has nothing to do with what it winds up as. Right. Yeah. So at the end of everything, it's completely this monstrous complex of random choices that are made more or less in the moment. Yeah. So one section goes to another. Oh, this sounds like it would be good here. I'm going to throw something on here. I have a minute's worth of drum loops that I've been working on that sound pretty cool that I made in X program, and I wanted to really mess with that, and then I wanted to put for some reason, an R&B kind of vocal choir after that, because that would be pretty cool. Maybe I listened to a lot of Stevie Wonder the night before, and I was just really in that mode, and yeah, so it's more or less completely in the moment, and I find that to be, at least for me, exciting and really, at least for me anyway, compelling in terms of the process, because I get the statement, well, I get bored really. I don't get bored. I just am always excited about adding new things, I guess.
Yeah. But within that context, I feel like most of the records have an overall like concept behind them. So maybe you have like that framework, or maybe I'm not. I don't know. Would you say that's accurate? Yeah.
Conceptually, for each record, I'm still dealing with and operating under the notion of this very adolescent, infantile attitude of, oh, I want to make the craziest, most insane, bizarre, out there. Can I swear? Or I mean, I probably should watch my language, right? Is that not?
No, that's coming out of your pay.
People consistently
actually
have cussed on this podcast.
Okay, because I might veer into that.
You're all good. You're all good.
Okay, I appreciate that. I mean, I'll try not to. I'll try to clean it up. But
you can say you can say whatever you, we talked about before. You can really say whatever you want.
All right.
Yeah.
I have consistently operated, as I said, with this infantile attitude of, I'm going to make the craziest, most insane stuff that the world has ever known. And I've been thinking lately that maybe it's time to not put that to bed, but maybe just try something new, as I just described in the compositional process itself. Try something new with different things. And there's some new stuff actually in the works that I've been doing that I sent to you guys, and that you took a look at. And there's a lot of stuff I think we'll wind up talking about there. Mm-hmm. But conceptually, no. I mean, the best way to say it, at least for me, I think, is that the Blipvert sound, it's getting closer. This record is getting closer and closer and closer. This record is another step along the way of getting closer and closer and closer to what I have in my head. It's not there yet, but it's almost there. And,
I definitely hear you on that. I feel like just listening to the progression of the Blipvert output, it does seem to be clarifying an idea as you progress.
Right. Mm-hmm. One of my little fantasies is I don't know if I'm sure people out there listening have seen The Lawnmower Man.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
Great movie.
So the ultimate goal is to get into the computer and be that guy, right?
When you get that suit on, your body gets sucked into the suit.
That's right. That's right. I am God here.
Physically into the wires or whatever.
That's right. I love that movie, by the way.
I haven't seen it. We should do a supplemental just about that one, just to give this entire interview context.
It's a fantastic film. I don't think anybody else liked it, but I did. And
well, that's two of you.
Yeah, well, I don't have any friends, but I do. One guy down in the Bay Area there, but that's another story. But
I don't live in the Bay Area anymore.
That's right. That's right. You don't even live there anymore. But it's getting closer. So the Blipvert concept, the name, the Blipvert, the pseudonym that I use, came about. I think maybe you came across it maybe in a paper or in one of the things that I sent you. Mm-hmm. It came about from my fascination as a kid with the Max Headroom television series.
Mm-hmm. Another crazy show.
Oh yeah, and the first, it's funny that series I think only lasted for 2 seasons. It wasn't on for very long. And regardless, though, the first episode was all about these things called Blipverts. And they were, in the episode, these mega fast, hyperactive television advertisements that a very corrupt media company was using in order to increase viewership. People would spend less time watching ads and more times watching shows, and you'd get your advertising quota in there. And they would just be delivered at the viewer at this super high accelerated rate, and the only side effect, of course, for certain people is that they would explode because it would just be too much information coming at you. And it was awesome. They would kind of work them. They would get drawn up into this body electricity kind of thing, and then they would just explode eventually. And this idea of a constant barrage of information overload, if you like, is not only something that I think appealed to me musically, and there's a huge reason behind that, which we'll most likely definitely wind up talking about, I think, later on. But that idea of an extreme towards a kind of sensory overload, if you like, mm-hmm. Really appealed to me musically. Later on, I think, even more so when I started to actually compose, primarily because it really destroyed any sort of concept of rhythm. Rhythm was basically taken out of the whole equation. Any sort of melodic structure, harmonic structure, everything was just more or less thrown into a cauldron, if you like, of organized chaos. So you take all this stuff, you throw it into a place of development, and then I get to shape and edit the resulting mess, And so that's something that's really appealed to me. And I don't mean this derogatorily. I guess maybe it's just my own observation, but the formulaic nature of electronic music is something that I've always also tried to get away from. I've never been a 4 on the floor techno guy. I love that kind of music. There's great techno artists out there.
Mm-hmm.
Dubstep or any of these genres. I tend to eschew genres, at least in my own work, quite heavily. I don't think that it's really helpful. The persistent proliferation of genres, by the way, now in electronic music, I don't know how many. There's just tons. But for me, I've always just been the kind of guy who goes, all right, I'd like for people to just listen to this for what it is. And a lot of people hate it, and a lot of people love it. And I've never really wanted to approach anything creatively and have a reaction of indifference. To me, that's kind of the death knell of really any piece of work. It's like if somebody comes to it and goes, "Oh yeah, that's cool, yeah, sure," that to me is just not. I don't jive with that.
Like, yeah, man, that's pretty chill.
Yeah, right.
Pretty chill.
Yeah, it's not something you're going to kick back in your lounge chair and listen to.
No, it's very active listening.
Yep.
You have to be a very engaged listener, and we'll probably get there eventually. I kind of want to talk about like the genesis of this, and by that, maybe if we can unfold the veil a little bit about how on what it's created and with what it's created, maybe we can get there eventually. I don't know if you want to divulge any of that, but you know.
Mm-hmm. I really hear you there, Mark, and I will be happy to divulge a little bit of the working process. I like to keep a lot of that secret a little bit.
Okay, cool.
I mean, I'm sure it's pretty self-explanatory. It's a lot of what goes on is in a digital audio workstation, and it's more or less just like digital version of analog tape editing. You know, you take a whole bunch of slices of tape and rearrange it, and so it's on multiple tracks now, and so.
Cool.
Yeah, I think what really was illuminating for me was that you told me that you don't use a grid at all. You're just on an open timeline and doing it however you're doing it, but it's that's like an important, I think, feature of your music that keeps it actually really fresh, honestly.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wrote a master's thesis for when I was at Wesleyan University, and I did some part of the research materials that I uncovered had to do with dub music, and there was something, I think it was by the scholar, his name is Michael Veal. He wrote a really in-depth and very comprehensive PhD thesis on dub music. If I'm correct, I could be wrong on that, but the idea of a dub.
Are we talking about dub reggae?
Dub reggae, yeah.
Okay.
The idea of these kinds of artists being action painters of sound. This was before I really even got heavily into visual art and became familiar with the action painters of abstract expressionism, Jackson Pollock and the like. When I actually take a step back and think about it, the digital audio workstation becomes kind of like a paint canvas. You know, you throw a bunch of samples up there, and even though it is a horizontally arranged and oriented experience in terms of the track having a starting point and an ending point, there is a process of shaping and editing digital audio files the same way that you might shape and edit paint on a canvas. A permanence out of time, if you like, to quote Zhu Ping's song.
A permanence out of time. Well, there's many more dimensions with music, right? Like you have, because you have time and you have the relationships between things and time.
Right.
And then there's vertical and horizontal, like, yeah.
Yeah, you bring up a good point there, Bob. One of the things that just sort of blew me away at the end of my doctoral studies up here at the University of Alberta, I'm still currently in Canada, and hoping to get back to the States soon. Not sure when that's going to be, but I came across this piano or this composer named Salvatore Schiavarino, who's an Italian contemporary composer, has done a great deal of works. And he has 5 piano sonatas, and these things are just ridiculous, especially the third one, which was given to me as an option to review and present an analysis on for one of my doctoral candidacy exams. And I took a look at the score when the faculty gave it to me. They gave me a piece by Anna Maria Avram, and I love her work. She's one of the spectralists, and I can't remember the other one, but there was this one, sprawling piano work, which is just completely insane. And I said to myself, I have to do this. When am I gonna get another opportunity to look at a score and analyze a score like this and offer up my own thoughts on something like this? And
which one was it?
The third.
This is his third piano sonata.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's just electrifying. I'm huge. I checked out a lot of his other work, and I'm hugely influenced by Skidrino now. But through some research that I did on the piece and Skidrino's thinking about this kind of stuff, there was a lot of information there. But the one thing that did come up was this idea of time and vertical time, thinking of time and music as a vertical conception rather than a horizontal conception. And this is something that I think has been existing within the Blipvert aesthetic ever since its inception. This idea that all of these ideas are coming at you, this new idea, this new idea, this new idea, at a super accelerated rate, which is consistently placing you in a new place and time. You're consistently thinking about something new. You're trying to orient yourself to a new area in time, or a new creative conception. It's consistently coming at you in this way, and so you have to restart, right? You have to restart your thinking. You got to consistently restart it. When you are listening to one of the masters like Beethoven or something like this, you're able to logically follow the piece, at least harmonically. Even with Wagner, even Wagnerian opera, that even though it's incredibly chromatic, the idea of a 4-hour arch, in which music and text are so intimately intertwined, and you're actually feeling the psychological effect of the characters on stage. This is something that the idea of experiencing a piece of music vertically rather than horizontally is something that really hit home for me. It was a huge, a revelatory experience. To put it more simply, the idea of experiencing a piece of music as you would a painting. Like all the information is right there in front of you, and you're able to take it all in simply by it being there in front of you. And so this was, or a sculpture, right? This is very influential to me.
Interestingly enough, though, when I listen to your music, oftentimes I try to not consciously, but what happens is I contextualize the information that's given in as it's flying in, almost as like little leitmotifs or something, where it's just like, okay, blast beats, right. Casio jazz voice sound, and then all these things, and they're organized in a different way, and that's how I'm able to take it on. And then you listen again, and you can like feel it as a larger structure. But at first, like upon first listens, and then you do a pretty consistently good job of like sneaking these really sublime and beautiful moments in there, throughout all of your music. It's a really fascinating aspect of all of that.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point, and also we're only talking about kind of one side of the kind of you have more variety than what we've described so far.
Yeah.
Well, I hope so. It's a huge process of discovery. I mean, I guess the pandemic has been good for something. I've been discovering even new things throughout that artistically. As I said, painting and visual art has been a huge help recently to kind of divorce yourself from banging your head against the proverbial wall, impenetrable, oftentimes wall of music, to do something completely different, to absorb the nuances of a different art form. I think is very helpful and very refreshing.
Yeah. So I do want to talk about how you got into the visual art aspect of that, because that's so important, especially with the score for Lady Dice is just astonishing, and the entire presentation and all that. But so can we go back a little bit and give some context to the music that you've made and everything? We're okay. Maybe Because you said you did a master's at Wesleyan. Where were you before that?
Before that, I was in the Bay Area, living in an old hotel, and actually where I met both of you, Bob, you drove me home several times from gigs, to a place on 41st Street in Emeryville.
Free jazz.
Oh yeah, I've driven you home there.
Yeah, there you go.
Near the Bank of America. All right.
Yeah, it was. Well, I have an incredibly high tolerance for just not giving a what about what I have to do in order to do this kind of stuff. Yeah. I've whittled my life down to practically nothing to be able to try to bring this idea to the surface. But before Wesleyan, I was living in Emeryville. I think I may have met you guys then. I can't be certain. Anyway, I knew Jordan Glenn, who's another guy who was interviewed for this podcast, and and that was actually when the Mind Gaze Hut was still around.
Good old Mind Gaze Hut,
which a place which I just will forever miss. It was just the best live room in the Bay Area, in my opinion.
Yeah, but, agreed. Double agreed.
Yeah. Did a lot of fun stuff there. And so I was doing some lessons, and I was driving a beat to shit car, and just sort of wondering what life was all about. And then before that, I was before that, I was working for Pandora, the online radio company, as a music analyst, and I was planning to move back to New York. I had this plan because we could work remotely with Pandora, but when the economy crashed in 2008, I was laid off with a number of other people, and I had to find other things to do. But really, before that, I was living in Oakland from about 2006 to 2008. Before that, I was in New York, and had been teaching a bunch with the New York City Department of Education, and even before that, did another master's degree in elementary education and in composition at Queens College and New York University. So,
was that the Copeland school?
There is a music school at Queens College. I didn't do that though. I wasn't involved in that school. I was doing straight up. It was part of a fellowship called the New York City Teaching Fellows, and we were in the School of Education, basically. And so even before that, I had already done another master's at New York University, and so I was able to get paid more at my teaching job, which was nice. But at 24, I basically said, all right, well, if I'm gonna do this music thing, if I believe myself to be as good as I think I am, I need to go where the big time is, and so that I did, and never look back. And so New York was an incredibly illuminating and wonderful time. Met so many amazing people, and it basically is responsible for Blipvert. Had I not moved there, Blipvert never would have happened.
Right, and
at all.
So you were doing. I know that you've done like touring as Blipvert.
Sure.
And was that around that time that started?
Blipvert touring actually started about 3 to 4, maybe 5 years after I did my first gig. My first gig was at the old office. The first gig as Blipvert was actually at the old office at the old knitting factory on Leonard Street in New York.
Awesome.
That was an interesting experience, and that was when I was a full-time teacher. And in those days, I would basically go out and do a gig, and at some points I would be irresponsible and stay out all night, and then get on the subway, go right back to work, and sleep on the subway and get to work in the same clothes I had worn the day before. But I can't do that anymore. Obviously, I'd probably wind up in the hospital, but. I learned a great deal as a teacher. I learned a great deal as a professional. I learned a great deal as a musician. The whole touring thing didn't really start to seriously get off the ground until I moved back to Oakland in about 2006. And I was able, thanks to Pandora and just the job structure that I had there, I was able to take off, from work and then come back. They realized, they understood that a lot of people who worked there were musicians, and you could take off and do your thing and then come back and still have a job. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, there's a lot of folks we know who have done that same thing, like Spencer Owens and Nate Brenner, and
that's right. Yeah. So it was. Yeah, it was a really great experience, and then Europe started to take off in around 2008, and that was I was for a while there, touring Europe every year for about 4 to 5 years, consecutively there, and so that was a period of really aggressive, getting out there and doing this kind of stuff, and it was. I'll tell you, man, it was hard. It was really, really hard.
Touring is intense, regardless. But like, I think you're doing nightclubs, right? And you're doing like late all-nighter type gigs, and so considering what we've heard and what we're going to continue listening to, I'd like to delve further back.
Sure.
What was your rig? I think you've told me in the past that you did like a CDJ rig or something like that, man.
Yeah, I still have those. I still have those. Yeah, so the first. This is actually quite funny. To when I actually think back on how I used to do this, I would take the first few gigs that were going on. I took my entire home studio to the gig and just basically just set up my laptop and like everything that I had at home, the Pro Tools M-Box,
your coffee maker,
you know what I mean, and just played the tracks back. And what's that?
Your coffee maker, just everything.
I should have done that. That would have. I probably would have a little bit more street cred there, but no. So that was a real primitive way of doing it, and I did a few more shows like that, and then I started to kind of seek out different components. Before I got the Pioneer, I actually bought a bunch of Pioneer CDJ 400s. I had to go back to those. I'm trying these days to get away from the computer. In all manners, just to get away from the screen, get away from everything in all manners, just get back to the more hands-on, raw material kind of thing.
Yeah.
So before the CDJ, there was a rack mount. I had a rack mount CD player, and I ran that through a bunch of old electronics company effects boxes. That was fun.
Crazy.
I had this big hard case which I'd lug around all over the place through snow and through through dirt and mud and everything. It got some good use, and then the CDJs actually came into the picture. I remember I went down to, I think it was Manny's Music when it was still around in New York City on 48th Street, or it was a music store around that area, most of which are gone now. But I remember when it first came out, and I took a CD of my own music, and I brought my headphones, and I just stayed there for about 2 hours, just improvising, and I mean it is such the Pioneer CDJ 400 is one of the most ideal live performance tools I think I've ever encountered. It's just so fun and so versatile, and now my rig is 2 Pioneer CDJ 400s with one of the mixers, it's like a I don't know what the model number is, but probably the best piece of gear actually that I own is I found a pre-molded case for like a DJ rig if you had 2 CDJ 400s and the mixer that goes along with it. So this is actually a flight case which is pre-molded for these exact components, and I found one in Germany somewhere. They don't make these anymore anywhere because they've discontinued these things from long ago.
That's so crazy.
But these I don't know why I stopped using these. I think it was for the convenience of the laptop and stuff like that. But laptop performance just kind of bugs me a little bit. It's not really it never really was my thing. But it's great to be using these again.
Yeah. Do you have any auxiliary effects that you're channeling or anything? I just like
yep. Actually, the only one. I mean, actually, the onboard effects with the CDJs and the mixer itself are ridiculous. I mean, you get flange and you get phaser and you get delays and you get like a robot. Good. They're just amazing. I mean, and they're all these kind of first time unique things that Pioneer I think was experimenting with in terms of a CDJ or
pioneering,
a DJ player.
if you will.
Yeah, a very pioneering aspect, hence the company name. But one of my favorite pieces of gear is an Alesis Air Effects module. And if anybody who's seen these things will know what I'm talking about. They're these little, it's like a theremin, but when you run your hand over the top of this little glass dome or plastic dome, you're able to affect the sound in lots of really weird, distorted, insane ways. And so that is a whole hell of a lot of fun to use
Sounds
with this
like
kind of rig.
Chaos Pad Theremin mashup kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it is.
Dang.
So, I have some more questions about your live performance thing, but
Sure.
I'm curious. Like, I mean, we were stepping our toes back into your history.
Mm-hmm.
You clearly know something about jazz, so you have some type of musical training.
Jazz.
Where did that come from?
Well, I picked some things up along the way. I went to New York actually because I thought I was going to be an infamous jazz guitarist, and that did not happen for a whole number of reasons. I got really soured on the idea of jazz. I was playing a lot of charts and doing a lot of improvising and trying to kind of get myself to the Jimmy Bruno level of jazz guitar, who's just a sick player when you hear him, or Joe Pass or something like this.
Yeah.
I actually did a summer session at the Berklee College of Music. I lived on a floor with 30 guitar players, 1 bass player, 1 drummer, and 1 keyboard player, and I left after a week. That was not
too many drummers for you.
right, too many drummers. Right, that was not a place that I wanted to be at that time. Anyway, jazz seemed at the time a really great way to kind of get into a mature, serious form of music, and be real serious and be real hardcore, intense guy who just plays guitar and that's all he does.
But hold on. You did learn, like, you know things about the guitar. Like, I've seen you play.
Sure.
Like, clearly, like, you have a lot of technique. Where did this come from? Is it?
Just practicing. I mean, as far as I can remember, a whole hell of a lot of practicing back in high school. I would do, and it wasn't just so much shredding. I mean, I became kind of obsessed, as most young dumb boys do, with and I certainly was one, with the technical side of things. You want to be the next Yngwie Malmsteen, or you want to be the next, I don't know, Joe Satriani. You want to be the next super shredder. So I became obsessed with these exercises that my guitar teacher, wonderful guy, one of the best teachers, for the instrument I think I ever had, was one of my first teachers, would give me, and I would do the exercises and I would go over it, and I tried to. It was, for a while, I only knew like 1 scale and a few chords, and then I tried to branch out and I tried to just do my own proactive study. I really wanted to do more. Mm-hmm. I really subjected my my high school cohorts to some pretty terrible lunchtime performances. I've always needed an opportunity to apologize to everybody. I'm sorry I put you through all that, but
this is why we're having you on.
Yeah, right. So. To make this for this mea culpa,
the grandest apology yet.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
But yeah, to finish out answering your question, Bob, the technical side of things just came with that obsession throughout the high school years, and then after in my 20s and in college, and but it wasn't so much even about that. It was also about exploring the guitar in different ways. I remember I would do these god-awful noise experiments by putting the guitar directly up to the amp, and turning everything all the way up. And I remember my dad came home from work early one day, and he said he could hear it down at the end of the street, and he comes home and he's at the bottom of the stairs and he's yelling at the top of his lungs, and you can't hear him, he's just mouthing, it's just, and there I am. Yeah, so it was
two
fun.
Full stacks or something, like, what do you like in your bedroom? 2 full stacks?
Yeah, just making complete noise with the guitar and amp.
I have been there. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So, and this is something I almost don't need to ask you because I know the answer almost, but like, it seems you do have like one of the things that I really love about you is that you have a almost insatiable appetite for music of literally all styles and really media of like any kind of art of all styles is like you have a deep appreciation for things on their own terms, like be it whatever it is, you know, a country song, a like Chinese classical music, whatever, you know, it's like, and did something set you on this path, or have you always just been like this?
It's more or less just we might get into this on a deeper level a little bit later, but I'm just a big dork, you know. I'm just a big nerd. I love learning, you know. I love learning about different things. It's just so inspiring. I care nothing for sports except soccer. I love watching, you know, European soccer, but you can't get it on the TV really out in the States. But I haven't owned a TV in, you know, decades now. And I just don't care about any of that stuff. I don't really care that much about pop culture. I mean, I guess there are some things about it that are interesting, and we're surrounded by it, you know, a great deal of the time. But I mean, there's always something else. You know, there's always as Mike Patton said when he was being interviewed about some. You know, there's a video online where he's making fun of the band Wolfmother, but you know, there's something interesting in that he's saying, you know, he's like, I've got this record coming up, I've got this. He's like, there's always something to do, and I never forgot that. You know, there's always something to do. There's always something to get involved in. Always something to learn. Always something to grow with. And I've always seen my journey as an artist as a period of, as a perpetual period of growth. I've always believed that if you're not really growing and exploring new things and bringing new things into your milieu of creativity, then you're not, I mean, this is just how I see it. I could be very wrong, but then you're kind of closing yourself off to all these other wonderful things. Now, of course, there are people who study their whole lives being, you know, great classical pianists or they focus on that one thing and they're world renowned and they're amazing. That's just never been my thing. I like lots of different things. Yeah. A kaleidoscopic panoply. Yeah. To be academically stuffy there, if you will. So.
Yeah, I mean that's
So I
there. Yeah. To be. I mean, you mentioned going back, and there's an experience that I had when I was about 8, 9, or 10 years old, and it really, I think, highlights that breadth, that width of influence that inspires me so much. And that was when I saw the movie 2001: A Space Odyssey all the way through, completely. And actually, I didn't see it all the way through because I had to turn it off at one point because it terrified me. It shook me to my core, pretty much.
Yeah. That movie holds up in a way that no other movie does.
Well, it's just, you know, and I have to watch myself when I start talking about it. See, I already started talking about it. And so if I don't catch myself, I'll never stop talking about it because there's just so much to talk about in it. But I'll keep it brief, I guess. I had seen, you know, as a kid, my dad had made a big deal about the Dawn of Man scene, you know, with the apes and the bone getting thrown up in the air. So I already knew about the film somewhat, and I'd seen that, and it was pretty cool. And then there's the monolith, and I didn't really understand that, and the music was weird, and I didn't really understand that at all. I liked the spaceship. I liked the guys, you know, floating through space. Hal, the computer. I mean, I really liked all that. There was dialogue. There's only 45 minutes of dialogue in the whole film. You know, there was familiarity there that I was able to latch onto. I should preface this by saying that as a kid, I had grown up in a world. There was always music in the home, but it was a music of familiarity. Pat Metheny made a really good point in an interview I saw with him a while back, the guitarist. He said that he thinks that, or he proposed the idea that music is a memory, right? Why is it that a vast number of us find a major third so appealing as opposed to a tritone, right? This idea of finding consonance with certain intervallic relationships and disconsonance or dissonance with others, right? Is there a natural predisposition? Is there, or an innate interpretation of certain kinds of pitch relationships? I don't really know, and maybe this needs to be explored more. But I think it's an interesting thing to think about. At least that quote.
I think just to answer that question, I think there is actually a natural predisposition of the ear to perceive the harmonic series, which includes the major third.
Yeah.
Bob sent me a really interesting text that we'll share with you that goes deep into the physics of that.
Oh, I'd love to read that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know who wrote it?
I don't remember.
What? Sorry, what was the question?
Do you know who wrote that? The author?
Oh, Herman Helmholtz.
Yeah.
The Phenomena of Tone or something. Let me find it.
Yeah, it sounds familiar, or his name sounds familiar.
Or on the sensations of tone as a physical basis for blah 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 blah. Here, I got the link right here. I'll put it in the Zoom chat.
Oh, great! I've got to check this out.
Yeah.
This is a classic text that was written in 1895 that really like, if you really go through it, it's a very, very, very long book, I think, to read. But he explains, he's doing all these experiments, and he's explaining how he sets up the experiments. And that explanation of the experiments that he's doing and like how he's discovering the harmonic series and all these physical things that he's building, like, it gives you a really understanding of like how we are able to hear what we hear, basically.
Oh man, this looks great. I can't wait to get into that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it looks deep.
Yeah, it's pretty hefty.
Very important document.
Right.
But anyway, we got there. You were talking about coming up in a familiar music household.
Yeah, I remember growing up in a let's say world of familiarity as far as music and even visual art and sound. Harmonic constructions, there's melody, you can identify the melody maybe innately. There's a rhythm, a definitive rhythm. Childhood memories specifically, I remember, my mom would always have records on. She'd go to the library and I remember, listening to musical soundtracks and dancing around on the big orange couch that we had. And there was one record that was, I believe it was a compilation of all of the popular science fiction vignettes of the day, like Star Wars, Close Encounters of the Third Kind. And on there, and you can hear this on YouTube, you can find anything now online, but on YouTube now, there was a version of Strauss's Zarathustra in a disco funk style.
Oh yeah,
by Eumir Deodato, who is a very well-known Brazilian composer and band leader and keyboardist, and it was just the most fun thing. It's so well done, with the big horn section and everything, and it's just great. And another great memory, of course, and then the Looney Tunes cartoons with some of the most jaw-dropping, enigmatic, complex, dynamic orchestral writing ever by Carl Stalling. I mean, good Lord. I mean, this stuff is just out of this world.
And you have to wonder how quickly he cranked that out, right?
Oh God, yeah.
Like, it's insane to think about that.
Yeah. I mean, just so much fun too. Must have been to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
And
go ahead. To be a composer in those days when like the working orchestras were in the studio every day.
Right.
Yeah.
That had to have been a time, man, to be alive.
Oh yeah, yeah. Just something that a very special time, which does not any longer exist for all kinds of other reasons. But I don't know, maybe it does somewhere. But another ththing I have to bring up is I don't know where this came from, but we had a tape. It was a tape, a cassette tape, or maybe it was from a record. I don't know, of Carol Channing. Of all people, narrating children's stories. And in the background, Mark, you'll appreciate this, there was a vibes player doing these kind of jazz motifs in the background. It was the coolest thing, you know? I mean, you don't forget things like this as a kid. So
no, I had a version of Owl Moon, the book, that had a tape with it.
Yeah.
And it was so killing. Like I'd listen to that over and over again. I believe it was Hammered Dulcimer. Yeah. But it's just something like that I've wanted to recreate. In fact, I recorded my mom reading Owl Moon, and I'm like making a little, I got to dig that up. I think Patrick Roth has it, but I'm going to soundtrack that out.
Get him.
Yeah, there you go.
Get him.
Yeah, it's great. It's these just great little gems from the childhood, and then of course Sesame Street and the Muppets and stuff like that. So there was as I said, you know, a world of familiarity. I could recognize I could immediately identify with what was going on musically in these situations, and that was more or less shattered when I saw this film. When I saw 2001. I mean, Ligeti's music is by itself captivating enough, but then you combine it with all of the visual imagery. So I had seen everything up until a point, but what I hadn't seen was the end, the Stargate scene, where he's flying through the wormhole and there's all the slit scan visions coming at you and stuff like that. Yeah. So the first time I saw this, I was going, okay, what is happening here? I have no idea what this is. This is terrifying, and I don't know what's going to happen. And he goes through all of the visions, and there's the blinking eye and the different colors and the alienscapes with the colors and all that. And then, by the way, this also is to say nothing of the fact that there's a book that accompanies this whole thing, which basically explains what's going on and what you're seeing. Yeah. Because Arthur C. Clarke wrote the book before the movie came out, and but I didn't even know that existed, and I had no basis, no foundation really for any sort of interpretation of what was going on. So,
and again, you were like 9, 8?
Yeah, 9, 10, something like this. I mean, maybe 8, 9, 10, somewhere around there. Wow. And I'm at home alone, and my sister's there, and we're watching this, and she didn't have as strong a reaction of it as I did, but we're alone basically, and it's I don't know where my parents were, I think, but my dad, I think my dad was at work, but so finally, and people who've seen the film will know exactly what I'm talking about. He winds up in the hotel room, right, which is basically a kind of a human zoo, as Kubrick has actually explained it, where they observe him and they propel him on to the next level of human evolution. The Star Child. Kubrick has Stanley Kubrick, who's my favorite director. He has a recurring theme throughout his films of facial close-ups. You see this in Full Metal Jacket. You see it in The Shining. You see it in Clockwork Orange. You see it in Eyes Wide Shut. You see it in a lot of his films.
Known as the stare too, right?
Yeah.
Like Vincent D'Onofrio, Jack Nicholson, their eye, like their head is slightly down and their eyes are straight at the camera. I'm doing it right now. No one can see, but
right.
And I'm nailing it.
Yeah.
I wish
of course.
You could see.
It is. Yeah.
But the Kubrick stare, man. And then of course Malcolm McDowell is like classic.
Oh yeah. Just classic stuff. My interpretation of that is Kubrick wants you to be completely absorbed in the emotional state of the character, right? You are completely involved. You are completely aware. It's inescapable, right? You're completely aware of the emotions that the character is currently experiencing. So there's a scene, and you may know this, and people who have seen the film will definitely know it, where Keir Dullea, who I hope to get to meet someday, because the whole ending of the film, he's acting, there's no words. It's just all bodily, facial emotion acting. It's just incredible what he does.
Yeah.
Really incredible. And it builds to this one scene. And first he's looking outside. He's terrified, right? He doesn't know what he's just experienced. He's looking outside the little pod, and then he sees himself, and then it advances again, and then bam! It just right facial close-up. And I have never seen the look that he has on his face is one of equal parts terror, surprise, fear, shock, awe, confusion. It's just incomprehensible. And it was at that moment that my brain just, whoop, there it went. And I had a breakdown. I called my dad at work, and I was, I romanticize it a little bit. It was like watching a scary movie. When you're
totally
young. But I think mostly
because it's something so inhuman, it must be
it's just right.
Yeah,
it's funny, and you say that, Mark. I showed this film to a class. I did a unit actually on this part of the film in regards to synesthesia, which is a big interest of mine and the subject of my doctoral thesis. A lot of the commentary from the students was that there was something not right about this. There was something off. Very alien, which is exactly the kind of mood I think Kubrick wanted to elicit.
Like high strangeness or uncanny valley type.
Exactly. And I think for me, the world of familiarity, as I mentioned before, that I was ensconced in, was now gone. And I'll never forget that feeling that I had. It was a feeling of everything is not going to be okay. It's just nothing will ever be okay again. And I never want to forget it. I really don't. I will never forget how I felt. And I guess in a bit more simpler terms, it was just like, there's a whole world of things out there that I know nothing about, and I just got exposed to it. I was just shown maybe what's in store for me later on. And it wasn't until many years later that I finally said to myself, all this Blipvert stuff and all the visual art stuff, it all relates back to that experience. That experience just blew open my brain to different ways of interpreting sound and interpreting vision, and it has guided my artistic life without question.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing.
Hugely influential.
I love these. There's always these turning point moments that I feel like people have in their lives where they can distinctly remember a single event.
Right.
And that is what you are describing.
Yeah. Yeah. It was equal parts traumatic, equal parts inspirational, equal parts otherworldly. And I never met Kubrick. But if I ever do, I need to shake his hand and buy him a drink, because he's as I'm sure this is true for many, many other people in terms of him inspiring others to go along their path, artistically or otherwise.
Well, Kubrick has passed, right?
Yep, he's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's at the damn fucking, what is that shit? Stanley Hotel bar right now. He's chilling.
That's right.
He's waiting for you.
That's exactly where he is.
Yeah.
I want to go to that place. My parents go there all the time.
Up in Mount Evans?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it'd be cool to do some more listening, maybe of some earlier Blipvert, and then kind of make our way through to your most recent work, like Lady Dice.
Sure, absolutely.
Emerald Oyster Honeycomb. What do you think, Bob? Like maybe going back to.
I was thinking about playing Elders of the Mirror.
Ooh.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Which I don't think that's your oldest work.
Nah, but it's
no, it was a 2013, something like that, I think.
It was released in 2017. I don't know when.
Okay, well then, that makes sense, because I submitted that to D-Trash for a compilation. Yep.
What kind of label is D-Trash overall?
Well, the guy who runs the whole thing, a guy named Jason Smith, who shout out to Jason. Jason is just a beast. I mean, he's been running this thing for years, and I don't know how he does it. I mean, he's releasing records from all over the world. He's finding just really obscure shit. I mean, and really innovative electronic music on the fringes of all different kinds. It's incredibly varied. And
sounds like a Luciano or Rent Ramis, you know?
Yeah, right, right, exactly.
Hanger, yeah.
He, I got. It's funny. When I first started working with him, which was I think back in 2007 or 2008. I never met him in person, and the first time I ever met him in person was just a few years ago in Toronto.
Oh, dang!
Yeah. It was
That's
great.
Cool.
It was great. We met at a film premiere of a breakcore or electronic music tour that a bunch of guys did across Canada.
Whoa!
And I met him, and it was great to finally meet the guy behind the whole work ethic.
How do you get to? Do you drive to Toronto? Or do you fly?
Fly. I mean, it's a 4-hour flight out there.
Oh, okay.
So if I have to go there, it'll be a 4-hour flight. Mostly flying. I mean, you could drive, but you'd be in the car for quite a while.
Yeah. Let me ask you this: are the releases on your Bandcamp in the order that they were produced, more or less?
Yeah. More or less. Yeah. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Man, I really don't know what to play now.
We talked about Elders, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff there. Yeah,
there is a lot of stuff here. I wanted to play Elders of the Mere. Maybe let's just play it, and then we can talk about it.
Sure.
I'll play, and I'm just play the first kind of like. Oh yeah, so here's the thing. I don't feel like I can play. Normally we do like a 1-2 minute segment.
Right.
Yeah, we should probably play this whole thing.
Well, I don't think that cuts it for this song, but maybe I'll do like 5 minutes of it.
Yeah, I mean, it has sections to it. I mean, the beginning will pretty much get you there. The beginning and then kind of the ambient singing section will probably give you a pretty good idea of what the track is.
Yeah, but those riffs,
I think Bob and I are both keen to talk about what's going on there. So yeah, let's listen. Let's listen.
All right, so this is Elders of the Mere.
That's right.
Okay, that piece does continue, but
That's so good.
I think this might be one of your heaviest compositions that I've heard.
Mm-hmm.
Would you agree with that?
The metal influence there is palpable. Yeah, well, Bob, you and Mark, we were actually gonna do a kind of a metal thing for a while.
Yeah.
But well, you understand
issues.
you guys are on the same wavelength, I think, as far as metal is concerned. Yeah, I mean the blast beats and the distorted guitar and the shredding and all that, and that definitely feeds into it. Yeah.
Okay, so I have a couple of questions that maybe is going to get us back to your live performance.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, have you ever played, like most of the videos I've seen, when you're playing live solo, you're not playing guitar. Have you ever done that before, though?
No, I haven't. It's just way too much gear to bring down. It's another thing to worry about, really. I would love to if I was I don't know. If I was a square pusher, maybe I could bring my bass and do all kinds of, weird, flailing about. But, whatever it is he does, I went to a gig of his. I wasn't really into it. But
you're like after the what have you and
after the what have you, right? No, I mean, going back to what you said earlier, Mark, about touring. It's great being the only person, doing the touring, because you get all the money if there is any, and you're the only person that you need to worry about. You don't need to worry about anybody else. But it's also a huge challenge because you're in charge of everything. You're responsible for everything. So I found that the less gear that I bring, the less stuff I have to worry about. Just makes for a better and more involved and exciting performance that I can do. If I have guitar there, the one thing that really gets I have to choose my words carefully here, but the one thing that really gets me about electronic music performances, and I've done a lot of these now, is a kind of a detachment from the music itself. Yeah, really anybody now can just sort of take a laptop and check their email on stage, sort of thing. Right? I mean, that's something that just doesn't appeal to me at all. I mean, back in the day when people first started doing this, okay, this is kind of weird. This is interesting. Yeah, a computer, taking your laptop and doing it live on stage, that kind of thing. That's cool. But then the activity, the dynamism, the energy, the fun, the spontaneity of an actual performance is something that just went missing, I think, in that realm for me a little bit. And so I just searched out ways and searched out components whereby I could still have a really exciting and deliver a really exciting performance of electronic music, which by and large is very detached from, say, Bob with your huge Denny Breakfast Band, or Mark with Dirty Snacks. There's actual instrumentalists playing, and people can identify very clearly what is going on with the produced sound due to the gestural nuances made on the instruments. Right? I mean, we know how a trumpet is played, we know how drums are played, and so forth. So you're able to automatically identify with that performative involvement and delivery. And with electronic music, it's very different because you don't have that. If you're staring at a laptop, or you're hiding behind a bank of electronics, or you're playing a keyboard or whatever.
Yeah.
And even a keyboard is hard to deal with unless you have a keytar. But with electronic music, and Bob, going back to what you said and conjoining it with what Mark said earlier. I would love to incorporate, and I used to actually incorporate some kind of weird Middle Eastern winds and unorthodox noisemakers kind of things, just to kind of bring out maybe a free jazz horn player sort of thing in earlier shows. But it's just as you both know, and as many people who are probably listening know, it's just getting to the gig and just getting on at the right time and making sure things sound good at all, and getting your drink tickets right is a chore in and of itself. So,
so wait, I have a good person, a good friend of mine that is a person that will remain nameless for the moment. Did performed like kind of in the style of an IDM artist,
right?
And he would have a laptop, so you'd be staring at the back of a laptop as the audience member, and he would do the whole like, all the stuff that they do. Right. He would be playing a track from iTunes and just like effectively doing what is an IDM performance as a dance piece.
Sure.
Oh, interesting.
And
to a degree, but yeah, dude.
right. To a degree,
right. Like this was like a very intentional joke, and and it also, the dance aspect eventually, as he continued doing this, the dance aspect grew into kind of like this very, very large thing that I don't want to say too much about it, maybe, but
right.
So how much do you think about your movement when you're performing as like serious dance?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of people have said, "Oh, I love your dancing," and I can't dance at all. I mean, I've never studied it. I don't. It's just spontaneous movement. It's a reaction to the sounds. It's a bodily reaction to the musical material, and I personally believe that it's very synesthetic in terms of the emotional and or psychological connection that I have with what I created. Going back to what you talked about earlier, Mark, I mean, the compositional nature of a lot of this stuff is totally in the moment. Mm-hmm. So it's almost like in a live context where now I have even more opportunities to distort the already chaotic miasma of whatever it is I created at home. You want to reconnect with those in the moment moments. You want to reconnect with that spontaneity. Or you want to recontextualize it and you want to deliver it as something completely new and unique, not only for the audience, but also for yourself. Unless I'm drenched in sweat at the end of a show, I just don't feel satisfied. I just don't feel like anything really happened. It's going even back to that childhood experience. I mean, to be overwhelmed by an experience, to be immersed, right? I mean, which is really one of the bigger words that I've spent time exploring in terms of synesthesia and in terms of the marriage of visuality and sound in so many of the artworks that I love.
Can we define synesthesia real quick? Because you're using it in a way that is unfamiliar to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so synesthesia I'm using it in an artistic sense. I'm certainly no psychologist. I mean, it is technically a disorder, I believe. And maybe if it's not a disorder, it is a condition. So I don't want to speak out of turn or say anything inaccurate, but it's where a person's senses become confused. And when you are, for example, hearing a piece of music, you're also seeing colors. Messiaen, Olivier Messiaen, the great composer, has writings on his synesthetic experiences with sound, listening to sound, and they are
Nabokov, right? Like,
I'm sorry,
Vladimir Nabokov, I believe.
I believe so too.
Very well-known synesthete.
Yeah, and these right, exactly. I'm not too familiar with his work, but I imagine it's amazing. And I mean, to read Messiaen's writings, they're just so great to read. Like I'm hearing these tones, they're shadings of purple with little bits of orange in the middle, and it's such a great, refreshing, eye-opening way to think about music.
Yeah.
There's a great book I'm in the middle of now by an art historian named Simon Shaw Miller. It's called I Hear, the visual in music. And he spends a good deal of time at the beginning of the book talking about the origins of synesthesia. It's very fascinating. But it is a sensorial condition whereby one sense gets connected to another, and it happens most prominently with sight and sound. Taste and smell are a little bit less frequent in this particular kind of condition.
Yeah.
And so artistically, this comes about in the works of the Russian futurists a great deal. Kandinsky. Kandinsky was one of the first painters. Vasily Kandinsky was one of the first painters to really try to bring out, and Paul Klee as well. Not to leave him out of it, but he was. These were some of the first painters, also very interested in theosophy as well. That was a big part of a big influential part of their artistic practice. But regardless, they. I remember I speak. I'm referencing Kandinsky's Composition 8. This is one of the first times where he attempted to represent the abstract emotional essences that musicians might encounter or might connect with when they compose or play or encounter, or when anybody encounters a piece of music. This is a fascinating thing to me. So artistic synesthesia might be a little. It might romanticize this idea of the conjoining of the senses of a sensorial experience. But at the end of the day, I think that discussing it in terms of how people put it together in artistic practice, and then separating that, of course, is profound. Going back to 2001, he in this book, in Sean Miller's book, he actually talks about, he does kind of a little fantasia, as he calls it, of the film itself, and discusses Kubrick's the ending of the film as a Gesamtkunstwerk, if you like, of the Wagnerian in Wagnerian terms, the ideal marriage of sound, vision, the plastic arts, a complete work of art, a totality in terms of being immersed in this experience right here. So,
dude, I mean, talking about romanticizing synesthesia, when I first learned about it, and I was reading a lot about Scriabin and listening to Scriabin's music,
right.
it was like one of the most intense synesthetes, where his music's just outright bizarre because he loved the way that F sharp dominant felt.
That's right.
And sounded and looked.
Right. Yeah, right.
I tried to will synesthesia upon myself.
Right.
It's like, I'm going to become a synesthete. I don't think it works like that. But I was so fascinated by it that I was like, I'm going to find a way. I'm going to see every one of these tones. And
right. Well, it's funny you mentioned that, Mark. That reminds me of this. I used to subscribe to Guitar Player magazine when I was a kid, and there was this ear training course. You guys might have seen this. People out there might have seen it as well. There was a guy who was trying to sell an ear training course to people, and he was relating pitches to colors. So he was trying to effectively teach people how to have synesthesia a little bit. Maybe that's completely off the mark of what he was intending, but one of the most immediate emotional associations that we can make, that people make, in terms of what we experience in our daily lives, is with color. Red. Oh my gosh, there's red, there's yellow, and it makes me feel or think a certain way just by virtue of having seen it.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
And so that's like taking the immediacy of that emotional connection and then translating it to a musical medium, I think is incredibly profound.
So how do you think about that? If you're like, I mean, first of all, I don't think it doesn't sound like you have synesthesia yourself.
No, I don't.
So how do you leverage that idea if you don't have that condition?
Just for me, it works just by learning and reading, about all this stuff, and as going back to what you said before, Bob, the idea of exploring so many different things. The more I take in, the more it all gets logged up here in the brain, and the more it can be referenced. You put it away in your influential or creative Rolodex, and then you can bring out Indonesian gamelan and Italian futurism, and sometimes and try to mesh those together somehow, or like how, like is there a connection there? And there most likely isn't, but could I make a connection? And then you start to dissect those kinds of things a little bit more. Okay, metallophones. Like let's leave the cultural aspect out of it, because I'm not educated enough, or I don't have the qualifications really to speak on Indonesian gamelan. So let's just take metallophones, and then we can make maybe a connection to Lou Harrison's music, right? Lou Harrison's wonderful music of where he incorporates the Javanese gamelan set, and he actually, with Bill Colvig, built his own gamelan set, which I believe is still at Mills College. I believe the original gamelan that they built is still there. I can't be certain about that.
Willie Wynant still has the key for that one, I believe.
Does he really? Yeah. Well, it doesn't surprise me. And so you make that connection, and then you start to read more about Lou Harrison, and then you start to read about the counterculture and that movement he was part of. And then you start to read about countercultural painters like Paul Jenkins, who is one of my favorite painters of all time. It was these giant poured canvases of watercolors and acrylics. And then you start to make these very maybe amorphous at first connections, but it all comes into this realm of, okay, what can I do with that? Can I do anything with it? Can I make sense of that artistically? Can I make sense of that creatively? Is there something I can do that will that'll be new, that will be unique, that will be fun, that will be dynamic, that will be interesting? As Richard Wagner said, good composers borrow, great composers steal. So I think there's some truth to that,
So one thing that I like to address when it comes up, when we're talking to people, and this is almost like a very personal question, is how do you go about personally when you have all of this information and everyone, many people creating all these, like even just thinking about Lou Harrison and what he did sometimes makes me like, just be like, damn, man, I'm all right. Maybe I should just chill. But
it's all been done.
How do you keep yourself feeling excited about like creating and not worry about all the other things that are out there and just be like, whatever, I'm doing my thing,
And I was very surprised to hear this, but maybe you and Bob or somebody, or other people listening, they know about Michael Mannering, the bass player, who once said to me, "It's a struggle every day."
Okay.
And I don't want to get all morose or despondent here, or reveal anything too personal, I guess. I mean, I have horrible days. I have horrible depression. I mean, when the darkness comes, as I'm sure this is true for many, many artists, I'm certainly not unique in this respect, but when it comes, and it's just kind of like, what in the hell is the point? What? I mean, I'm still doing this, right?
Dude, I know.
I have no equity. I've got some savings. I've tried to be smart about that. Right.
Yeah. Don't stress that.
But then I pass by a television and I see a program called The World's Biggest Loser. And I say to myself, okay, let's try a little harder. Let's go back, and there's always something to do.
Yeah.
You could be watching that, or you could be doing the other stuff.
Exactly. You could be sitting down, and that's how you spend your time. Right.
Exactly. And I just, I mean, whatever. If people like watching The World's Biggest Loser, I don't care. I mean, that I even know what that is very shocking to me. But
that's the weight loss show, right?
It is. I'm sorry, but I just find the title, the premise, and the idea of something like that to be, I mean, to call it derogatory or to call it insulting is really being charitable. I mean, it's just so unnecessary. It's cruel. It's inhumane. Anyway, that's just my little soapbox. But whatever. People watch it and people produce it and have produced a lot worse.
Yeah.
So
there's definitely worse shows out there too.
Oh, there sure are. Yeah. But you're absolutely right about that. But to go back to what you said, Mark. I mean, it's you have to get to a point. I think, at least any artist that I'm familiar with. I mean, look. You and Bob. I mean, you and Bob amaze me. I mean, you guys orchestrate this crazy stuff for multiple instruments. I mean, it's time signatures and like percussion and massive ensembles of people. So
yeah,
you guys know what it's like.
Bob, I've done a few, but I need, like, part of all these questions is like, man, I feel like my productivity could use a boost personally, but I'm sure that we all feel that way. So whatever.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like, it's never enough. Like, I'm not doing enough. I'm not doing enough to,
Yeah. It's your own personal, like, if you just think about composers, like the tradition of like Western music composers.
Sure.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of composers that have like extremely few pieces, like a handful.
Eric Satie.
And like, that's their life's work,
Mm-hmm. Right.
And it's like, usually, like, we know their names because that stuff, what they happen to be like true geniuses and that stood the test of time, yada, yada, yada. But like, I don't know. Like, I think one's personal output does not, like, that, like, being low output is not a problem.
Right.
In and of itself.
Right.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, like, Gerard Grisey spent how many, like 20 years on like periods or whatever? Or what was that piece called?
Oh, I'm not familiar with that.
I'm saying period. I think that's not the whole. That's just the one part of it. Anyway, it's like one's personal output is like it's not a reflection on the quality of work, and it's not a reflection. It shouldn't be like it's not a race,
Right.
Yeah.
We're like, I can pile up there's people that pile up recordings and it's not all good.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
right.
It's tricky. I mean, both of you have a much larger output than I do, and I greatly admire the quality of everything that you both have done. So it's inspiring, but yeah, I feel like a lot of it is just like time management and intention too. But
yeah. Oh, absolutely.
I was talking about just to follow up, Les Espaces Acoustiques.
Okay, I've never heard this piece. And then you can go to people like Harry Parch, who spent, I think he purposely spent several years just being homeless.
Yeah.
And his insane conceptions of new tuning systems and instruments to play those tuning systems that he built and that are in storage somewhere, and that are celebrated and played on and reviewed on occasion.
They're playing. I think there's a Harry Parch ensemble that plays those instruments in their bunch of concerts this year. But
I'd love to see that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like I think we agree. We all agree on this.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's great for me personally to hear y'all's feedback on that, and then I hope for listeners as well. It can help. And that's why I bring it up, because I feel like a lot of people who are creators like go through the same cycle we all do, I'm sure. So I always like to hear those who I really think are amazing creative thinkers, like, kind of, if they can illuminate their thoughts on that, I think it's really cool, and I appreciate it. I appreciate you opening up on that a little bit.
Sure.
Can we maybe telescope back like two or three things here? Because I wanted to. We didn't actually talk about the little vocal break in that piece in the Elders.
Which one?
Elders of the Myrrh.
Oh, right. The mirror, yeah. Which vocal break?
No, the middle section where you're
the middle section. Oh, yeah, right.
That's you
sure,
singing, right?
Sure, that's me. Yeah.
Okay. So when I hear that, because there are other people who have approached this, like you could ostensibly relate this to, I guess, like music concrete, right? Like but the contrast of the musical elements itself, and then to have this really hard and heavy metal music, and then like this really, again, it's beautiful, you know, this event happening. Was this again how you had described it earlier, where you were just following, like you were improvising, and this happened to feel right in the moment, or was there like more of a plan for that?
Can I rephrase Mark's question for him?
Sure, please.
I think what I want to know about this is, like, you have, when you're making this, you'll maybe have a thing of that's like a 1 second blip of like this very beautiful phrase or whatever, and then you'll have like a hit, and there'll be like some other like very aggressive thing happening.
Right.
And then in this particular song that we played, that moment happens to be like, I don't know, a minute or two long.
Right.
And so what is the decision tree for you when it comes to like, how does this idea express itself? Or does it need to cut off? Like, when does this idea need to be cut off? Does this idea be its own self-sustaining piece? Because you have those as well. Or like, you know, how do you think about your song structure and the length of the various pieces of it?
Right. It's artists listening, and the both of you will understand. It's instinctual. It's over when it's over. There's really, I mean, it's a stupid answer.
That's a Morton Feldman quote right there.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, the very long pieces, right? It could have any. It could be any number of things. It could be a sheet of lyrics I've had lying around that I thought would go really well with this, and it only lasts for 5 stanzas or something. It just feels like it's done. Again, going back to the Max Headroom Blipvert episode, I personally am wary. One of the bigger things I'm paranoid about when composing is being redundant. You know, is going on and on with an idea. I'm not a minimalist, of course, by any means, but I guess for me, I don't want to have an idea sticking around for too long. I'd like for it to say something, whatever it is that it needs to be said, and then go on to the next thing. And going all the way back to the beginning of this interview, things are getting closer and closer and closer to what I've had in my head. So these kinds of sections might very well now be the same length, but there's a lot more going on in the section. It's a much more disjointed, much more chaotic, much more convoluted, much more developed section. More, you know, I want more. There's more development. There's something else that could be put there. There's something else that could be developed there, which might be a little bit overkill. But then again, this idea of sensory overload and reaching that kind of sound that I've had in my head for so long. I should say that a great deal of this record is influenced by a DJ from the UK called Hellfish. This guy just, he writes even more insane stuff than I mean, he's just insane. I love all of his material. He came out with an album recently called King of Iron Fist. And this is just one of the most insane records that anybody will ever hear. He has a record on UZ called Meat Machine Broadcast System, and it is just out of this world. So
say the name of the artist. What is the name of the artist again?
Hellfish, one word, capital H.
Yeah, and this I came across his music at a store called Other Music. In I'll leave my commentary for that off, at least as far as that store is concerned. But Williamsburg-esque. But it's there was a little statement under the CD which said, listen at your own risk. Okay, I'm definitely buying this.
Yeah.
So it's just incredible, and a lot of what he does. Maybe not a lot, but a bedrock, I think, of what he does is this sort of a super like a happy hardcore, like a really really developed, souped up happy hardcore kind of thing. A 4 on the floor, and then combining that with all kinds of samples and all kinds of breaks and cuts, and it's just insane. And so. I think I sent you a track called Xenographed, which is going to be on the new record. That's about as close as I possibly could get with my own stuff, and as well a little bit of his influence in there. You hear the a sort of a 4 on the floor snippet kind of from time to time in there, and then of course trying to keep that for any length of time or any logical length of time for me is just impossible, because then I'm already on to the next idea. It's like, all right, well, that's cool. Now what else? What else are we going to do here?
Yeah. Excellent. Would you say that your improv is, maybe this is a different conversation, but right. I'm just wondering if you feel like your free improvisation style is similar to that, or if you're more in the moment.
Oh yeah. Well, no, you're absolutely right on that, Mark. When I first moved to New York, I maybe say got my start, did a lot of playing in what was left at the time of the New York quote unquote downtown scene. Yeah. Wasn't really much left of it by the time I got there, but there were a number of different people that I met, great free improvisers. There's a guy named Blaze Sawula, who I don't know if he lives in New York anymore, but he kept a improv night going at a community center called ABC No Rio in the Lower East Side, called COMA, Citizens Ontological Music Agenda. And Blaze is just a towering reed player, and he's played with people all over the world. He's toured all over the place. And he's just such a great player and such a great guy. And he kept this thing going for years and years, and I would go down there all the time and do their anniversaries and their events and some shows there. There was also a number of I played in I have to mention a guy named Ron Anderson. Ron Anderson was one of the first people I ever met and played with in his band Pack. Yep, in Pack. Yep. I'm on the first Pack record that Ron ever released, and here I am, this sort of dumbass kid, just arriving fresh in the city, and I'm listening to things like that I never even listened to before, like Captain Beefheart. Ron turned me on to Captain Beefheart, and I was, whoa, where has this been all my life? Trout Mask Replica was, as I'm sure it has been for many people, an epiphany. And then Frank Zappa and the Ruins, of course, and other things. We actually did a tour with the Ruins many years ago, and it was just out of control. I've never heard of
the Ruins.
They're incredible. Yoshida Tatsuya Yoshida is the drummer who started the whole group, and at the time the bass player was this guy named Sasaki Hisashi, who was a really good friend on the road. We had a great time, great tour, incredible musicians. I mean, just incredible. Just the technical ability of those guys is just unsurpassed. It's super prog. It's like prog on steroids.
Yeah.
But free improv. Oh, go ahead.
I'm looking at the Wikipedia for Ruins, and there's the genre list, and the first genre listed is Zool. I've never heard of that.
What? Yeah. How do you spell that?
Zeuhl.
Yeah.
As a genre. Are you familiar with this, Will?
No, but Yoshida is a huge fan of the band Magma.
Oh, hell yeah.
So I don't know if that is one of like the Magma invented words, because as you know, Christian Vander invented an entire language to use. And Magma is just. I mean, if I could have a band like that, I mean, good Lord, I will have reached a certain level of excellence there, but probably not. Probably not going to happen in my lifetime. But
if I could have a band like Magma, I will have reached a certain level of excellence.
Yeah, well,
that's a fair statement.
I mean, it's just I saw them live at the Knitting Factory. I mean,
oh damn,
choir,
dude. Really?
2 electric pianos. I mean, it's just going off these incredibly complex parts, and it's tight as hell. It's just tight, bam, in the pocket. It's like where did that go with today's music? It's just unbelievable. So anyway,
it's nasty, man.
Yoshida is a big fan of Magma, and so that might have something to do with it.
All right, so I think that before too much time passes, we should listen to like some work from Billions, and then talk about what you're up to today as well.
Sure thing.
Sorry, Billions of Cicadas.
Billions of cicadas.
Friends call it Billions. So
that's great. What's happening there?
I have a standing up desk.
Oh, nice. Yes, so I have one of those too. Yeah,
having a seat. Man, I was just thinking about. Do you remember the band with It was like one show with you and me and Eli and like probably Mark and Robert Lopez.
Say again, Bob. It was freezing there, was it?
I was just saying, do you remember that one show? It was like me and you and Eli and Robert Lopez.
Oh, yeah.
I forget who else.
Yeah, a drummer guy named Rob Pompelli.
Yeah, yes. So one of the things that I wish, honestly, I would love to do whenever we have the opportunity to, right. I would love to do more free improv stuff like that.
Let's do it. Yeah.
Where we're just like totally going for it.
Yeah.
Yes. Because
Bob, what were you playing in this context?
I think congas and stuff.
It was myself on guitar and weird
kalimba maybe.
Yeah, electric kalimba and I did some other interpretive conducting stuff, and then Eli Wallace on electric keyboard and Robert Lopez on percussion. He just had a battery of stick and hand percussion, and so did Bob.
Yeah.
And then there was also a drummer named Rob Pompelli who was there too, and it was called the Transcontinental Blow Up Telethon. So that was.
But so one of the things that I remember distinctly about that group that always kind of stuck with me, was your ability to kind of like sustain the growth of energy over like a longer period of time than like most, like, I mean, because we played a lot of free improv in different situations in the Bay Area, and like your ability to sustain and continue pushing forward the energy and the impetus of the music, like, was just incredible. You had so much, like, where a lot of people might tap out, you had a lot of room to go.
Right.
And that was really cool. And it was cool to play with someone like Eli, who was just like right there with you, you know.
Dude, that dude will go.
Yeah.
You'll have to drag him off the stage.
That's
man.
Right. It's great. It's great.
Like that some of my craziest improvised evenings have involved him. Like, and I'm just like, okay, dude,
it's
we're in it.
Yeah, setting up simple grooves and then just going for it. Yeah. Well, that's I appreciate that, Bob. That's a huge compliment, and that's what I try. That's for me. That comes from the influence of Charles Mingus, right? So you listen to the Mingus Big Band, and it's it's going. You're there. You better be there, or Mingus will probably beat the living shit out of you. I mean, you better be there. And it's just some of the best. Live at Antibe's is probably my favorite. It's probably one of the best live jazz records I've ever heard. But yeah, that I really, unless you're doing a Brian Eno kind of retrospective, or you're doing a specific ambient performance, this also goes back to what we're talking about as far as live electronic music performance. I mean, I've seen so many disasters. There were did a gig up in Seattle, and I remember one guy was doing like a dark, quote unquote, dark ambient set, whatever the hell that is, and so the track fades out. And there's silence for a minute, and then you hear that Apple icon, didn't, kind of thing.
Yeah. And
it's just, ooh, ouch.
Yeah.
You really don't know what you're doing, do you?
Yeah.
I'm. This might sound like the asshole talking, but it is the asshole talking. That's exactly what I am. I have no time anymore. At least at my age, and as long as I've been doing this stuff for, I won't say amateur night, although that is what you encounter, I think, a lot of times. But for those who are not prepared, if you are showing up just to kind of be on a stage and troll and get drunk and hang out and say foul language into the microphone, with the pitch turned all the way up like a moron, I mean, I have no time for that anymore. And I would rather, this also goes to what you were saying earlier, Mark, about the moments of despair, the moments of how do we deal with this, how do we cope really with all this, with the down times and all that. Music to me, I don't want to sound cliche here, but I mean, it really is. I mean, Zappa said music is the best. I mean, it's a life-affirming moment. To be honest, it's a very lucky moment and a very privileged moment to be on a stage, to get to express what it is that you want to express in front of a group of people. Painting has, for me, and visual art has brought in a completely different dimension to that, and it had to during the pandemic when you couldn't perform anywhere. But it's exciting, and there is I don't really, I'm very influenced by people like Ray Charles, for example, and John Coltrane. A lot of their spiritual energy comes from the Baptist Church, right? From the idea of Southern or gospel or gospel music or things of this nature. I mean, people worship to John Coltrane's music in San Francisco, right?
Oh, totally, man.
So there's an element there, and I think probably the best way to respond. I mean, I'm already responding, but to really drive the point home, Bob, to what you were saying, I'm very inspired by something I heard the composer Lamont Young say about John Coltrane, which was that Coltrane, and this is Lamont Young talking, was a very unique kind of genius who had the ability to project right out into the world without any sense of commerciality or without any hesitation or reservation. And when I actually understood that, or as best I could, that's an incredibly powerful notion, which is basically to say, I don't give two damns who's out there. I'm not playing for a record company. I'm not playing to impress anybody. I'm not playing to for these girls over here or anything like that. As most musicians unfortunately do. To impress anybody or anything like this. I'm not doing this to prove a point. I'm not doing this for a political message. I'm doing this simply for the art and simply for the effect that it might have. And where it comes from a lot of times, or not a lot of times, but where it comes from specifically with John Coltrane, is from an immense spiritual connection with the divine. You hear this all over his records. When he rode, as John Schott said, when he rode tonality to the end of the line, he where else are you going to go from there? So he went free. He went completely abstract into interstellar space and sunship and albums like this. And he had to keep going. The stories about John Coltrane experimenting with LSD, I don't know if there's any veracity to that. There probably is, but that was another way of him to get even further out, I would imagine. If that is true.
I don't think I had heard about that. That's
I mean, there's rumors floating around. Who knows if they're true? But without,
I didn't think that like jazz musicians used any drugs during that time period at all. But
yeah, I mean,
no, I'm just kidding. But I mean, like for him to get even, because what you're talking about with him, I also think about Messiaen and Bach for whatever it's worth.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I feel like a part of the reason why their output was what it was because they just felt like they were doing everything for a divine force that was much larger than them.
Sure.
And therefore their ego had no place in the music. You know?
Well, you listen to something like Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. I mean, here's a guy who's deaf. And he writes that, and it's basically yelling at the divine. Why did you do this to me? Why are you afflicting me with this? I mean, I'm doing all of this for you, and so forth. And so, this notion of projection is a very powerful thing for me, and it, I guess, really, it's kind of. I hope it kind of drives the point home as far as what you're asking, or what you brought up there, Bob. Because I like to take that and I like to channel that to different musicians. Like I like to see, like it's very inspiring to me to see how insane, sure, let's use that word, Bob will get in this moment. And I'm gonna and in addition to that, I'm gonna push Mark to his absolute limit.
Yeah.
And I find I've worked with both of you before. I often find that for me anyway, a very close and a very intimate bond gets developed. I mean, we've known each other for years, and there's no stopping that. And it's come through this incredible musical connection that has been in moments, at least in my estimation, about as pure as you can get. There's no distillation in terms of, well, we're doing this for a reason. We're doing this for something. We're doing this for peripheral concerns other than the art itself. Yeah. Maybe I'm completely full of shit, but this is...
No, I totally agree. I feel like thinking back, some of my favorite gigs that I've ever played, both of y'all have happened to be on those.
Yeah, right. So
right. It works out.
Yeah. I mean, I remember there was one we did at. There was one. The photo of it is for Jordan Glenn took the photo. There's, studying the score backstage, and we did it at some restaurant or something, right?
Oh yeah, Monkey Town
or Monkey Brain.
Yeah.
Fuck man.
Monkey Brain,
yeah. Franklin and 17th or something like that.
Yeah.
Spice Monkey.
Monkey, that's right. That was a very
where Fernando moved this series for a little while.
A very short-lived venue that was.
Yeah, the Oakland Freedom Jazz Society was there for probably 4 months.
Yeah. They didn't like a lot of that, but
no,
at all. But then you go across the bay to Carl Evangelista's Monday Makeout, and you can do whatever you want.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, totally. I mean, he's also been on a lot of those gigs that I'm thinking about right now.
Sure, of course. Yeah. But that's where I come at, with a lot of that energy. And it's fun.
Yeah, thank God for that, man. I mean, dang. Like coming out here and doing what I had done with free improvisation and then being out here and it becoming more of like a playful and open and joyful event,
right?
Instead of it being wrapped up in like ego, and it's like,
and there's
everyone
still a lot
just
of that.
gets stoked about what the band can do, together, and like what can happen.
Let's see how far we can drive this. Yeah, let's see how far out we can take this. A huge concept, by the way, I feel in Jordan Glenn's Beak. Jordan really brings that to the group in a different way, all his own, because it's his group. But
episode 1, people, go back and listen.
I like one thing that you said, and it makes me think of something else about your music, actually, that like you were mentioning, like not taking things for granted, like when you're on stage, like it's a privilege to be there.
Amen. Yeah.
And the kind of reason why I asked you about your movement as dance, it kind of has to do with a lot of the things that you do, or like even just talking about your music as being, being kind of sourced from an improvisational spirit or something like this, where like the way that you're constructing it is, it's improvised. One could listen to us say that and think like, oh, we're just coming up with this. You're just coming up with this on a whim or whatever. But really, the truth of the matter is like you're putting so much work into this. Like your effort is palpable. Be it the recorded music or the live music, it's like you've spent so much time thinking about and crafting this thing, even though it comes from what may sound like a whimsical idea. It's absolutely intentional, and like you're putting the work in it. Like you're no slouch on this stuff. Like,
well, thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, that's all I
say again, Bob. I
missed
the last
that. But
yeah. Well, I appreciate.
I was just gonna say that's it. That's all I. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that very much.
Yeah, man.
So we gotta listen to like 8 more releases here. So
Uh-oh.
And we do need to talk about the visual art element a little bit more as well.
Yeah, we'll get it all in.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't even we haven't been going in any kind of order here.
Right.
One of my favorite, one of my go-to songs albums is the Quantum Buster EP, which is an earlier one.
Yeah, that I think I still will chalk that up as some of my best work ever. It's not so much going towards the sound, the ideal Blipvert sound. It's more of a compositionally focused record, and it came out on a label called Eat Concrete in the Netherlands, which it's my first vinyl release, and I was very proud of it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, there's a vinyl of this?
Oh yeah. I still have some left if you want one.
Yeah,
there's not too many left. They're basically gone. But this came out in about 2010 and toured all over Europe with it, and it was one of the best gigs I think I ever did with this release. Was in Estonia, of all places, and I got called back for 2 encores, and it was just they'd never really heard anything like this before, and I was just so jacked up. I was going nuts. I was just having the time of my life, and
that sounds amazing, dude.
It was really a privilege. It was a party that was organized by the hosts who had us there, and there were a few thousand people there. And the guys, this is a slow night. I'm just slow night. Okay, this is insane.
Was it like a Tuesday or something?
Yeah, right, something like that. But
is it like normally like an EDM crowd or something?
Oh, back then I don't even know. I mean, the big thing back then was dubstep. That was the big musical style.
Right.
It's when dubstep had pretty much taken over everything. As a matter of fact, at one gig I did in The Hague, I'll never forget this. It was the last gig of a tour I was doing there, and some kid came up to the booth, like actually came up to the booth. I mean, a lot of brass, and on his phone had texted in so I could see the message because it was too loud to talk. The word dubstep with a question mark. Yeah.
Did you take his fit picture? Like, just like stand there, don't move. Like,
I was, well, I think what I did, I looked at him and I just shook my head and walked away. Just go away, dude. Please just go away.
Wait, oh my God. Wait.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Sorry, what year was that?
This is probably 2010, 2011, 2012, somewhere around there. Yeah.
I'm going to do this to so many people.
Yeah.
Just with the
it's worth
phone.
it.
Like, even if like you can totally talk and it's like at Temescal Arts Center.
Yeah.
Just like when they're done performing, like go up to like Lenny or something.
Yeah,
just
right.
be like,
Yeah, right.
This is something we definitely have to do whenever
Country?
we see Matt play next.
Right. Right.
oh yeah, so keep that in mind. Let's listen to a little bit of this.
Which one is it? Which one are you gonna? Oh, so
I wanted to play like the kind of ending bit of Quantum Buster now.
Yeah, that's a fun one. Yep.
Yeah. Let's.
Yeah.
All right, here I'll put it on.
Dubstep.
Shut up! You want to sing in my band? You sing when I fucking tell you! Not a moment before!
Alright, bring the whole band in now. What? Now slap and cut.
I think that this song would be so amazing to see arranged for like a large ensemble.
Oh yeah, I would love to do that. Yeah.
And this, I actually don't know this record. That was incredible. And dang, man, that's awesome.
Little square pusher troll there.
Yeah,
the bass.
But it sounds to me like that. Just the format of this one. You could probably arrange this.
Oh, I'd love to. Oh, well, it's one of that big hits that you hear there. That was like a really I wrote this entire record. This EP, this 4-track EP was actually 10 tracks. But we the rest of it, which became Wax Cathartic, which is the release that comes after this. The label manager of Eat Concrete, we just ultimately decided it was too long. We'd have to do like a double vinyl, and that was just going to be completely impossible. So he selected the tracks that he liked the most, and we just went with that. And as far as the composition, at least on this, it's I think it's some of my best work yet. But I did the whole thing on a what was it? It's I think it's an Electribe SX drum machine. With those blue tube driven, the tube driver drum machine. So the whole thing was done on that. And I wrote this entire.
You told me to get one. Of those
oh yeah, it's great, man. I still have it. I'll never get rid of it. There's so much stuff coming out now, but that will never leave. And I wrote the whole record over a period of 10 months in a laundry room in a house in Oakland. I was staying like in the way back of this house. It was basically part of the laundry room at a friend's house in Fruitvale.
Yeah.
So it was a very very challenging time, but it was also a time of great creativity there. So
yeah.
This album cover is so dope too.
Yeah, the guy who did it was a guy named Elzo, and he I never met him, but he just nailed. I told him I wanted a Miles Davis Live Evil kind of cover.
Yeah,
and he came back with that, and it was just like, that's it. You don't need to do anything else.
Yeah, I mean, if someone gives you this for a record cover, you're not going to be like, well, here's the revisions of like this, because this is like so beautiful, so much creativity in it.
Yeah.
That was amazing. We can talk off mic about the availability of the records, but I would.
Oh, sure.
Deeply interested.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm. So just real quick on the Electribe, does it have its own onboard memory? Were you like composing most of the tracks on there, saving it onto a little floppy disk, and then working on it that way? Yeah.
So basically, the really developed the track I'm most proud of on that EP is called E. And it's a 7-minute long epic, pretty much, and it's just insane. It's insane. Is the best way to say it. And so take the Electribe, you create a little drum loop, make another one, piece it together, add in some vocals. There's a lot of guitar playing on there. That horn sound, or that sort of big band horn break on there, is actually a part of the Electribe sample library there that came with the unit, and I was always looking for a place to use that, and this track came obviously into it. Yeah.
And having like onboard constraints is so beautiful.
Oh yeah,
like because sometimes you're just like, okay, boom, that's how we're gonna work with compression right now, because that's what available, and here we go, move on.
Yeah, well, you gotta push beyond what the unit gives you. You have to kind of morph it into your own purposes to use it exactly as it's intended. Might be a little boring, but
yeah, totally.
But
awesome.
Yeah, it's a good. I like that one.
Do you want to hear my comment on Bandcamp on this album?
Have you seen this?
This is a pretty epic. This is a pretty epic comment. Yeah.
It says,
but Bob is right on. He is right on.
You come into existence suddenly. You are on a stage. You are presenting an award at an awards show. The award is for Best Overall. The name of the winner is written in a character set that you do not recognize. You are being urged to hurry up. You are sweating. Your clothes don't fit you at all. The lights prevent you from seeing the audience, but you can tell from the reverb that you are in a massive space. There are dozens of microphones in front of you like this was a press conference from 1985.
Favorite track? Pantrifical Wiccans.
Pantrifical Wiccans. Yeah, I smoked a lot of weed to come up with that. Yeah. That was in my days of doing that. I don't do that anymore, but
Got too strong.
Got too strong. Man, so I didn't realize this. So Wax Cathartic is the next album.
That's right.
And I have a song called sorry. No, I'm mixing this up now. No, this is, I forget. What is the song that is, I have a song called Village, and I don't remember what it equals.
On Wax Cathartic?
No, I have it. I think maybe you just gave it to me.
Oh yeah. That was a title of a track that is actually, I think, the first track on Billions of Cicadas, which is not the title, not the correct title.
Right.
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
that's it. Right. Yes.
I think it was called Village of Dirty Bully.
Yeah.
There you go.
I don't know. Like it's even like hard to like to pick a song here. Like I love I could just listen to all this stuff. Like there's Sun Ra's Car.
Yeah, there you go. That's a fun one.
My Whole Fish is a Tree is a great song.
I feel like, wait, we're talking about Wax Cathartic, right?
Yeah, let's talk about
Oh,
it. Let's talk about Wax Cathartic
Because I feel like on this record, this was another one where I was just like, oh, well, each piece is different, but obviously, and I'm might be completely wrong, but I'm like, oh, there's an overarching concept or a unifying theme, and for me, it's the vocal approach on this one.
That's right.
So maybe we can listen to. Bob has 2 excerpts on deck for this one, like Flip for Real and My Whole Fish is a Tree. So maybe we can listen to a little bit of both of those and talk about that, because this definitely stands out in a different way for me.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. And My Whole Fish is a Tree is actually a remix that was done for a guy named Delete, who's over in Belgium, I believe. Sergey, he's just great guy, love him. We were going to do a tour at some point, but it never materialized. But he's a great composer and a great musician and producer of tracks. So that was a remix for him. And yeah, there's a lot of good vocal stuff in there. Flip for Real is a little more dynamic vocally, so that would be definitely a one to feature as far as the vocal stuff, because it kind of breaks into a alien doo-wop towards the end.
Yeah, totally.
Right. Don't you know that you can?
Could give a damn, I drive a back, Oliver Van.
Sick of shit. I think you made the point.
No, I didn't!
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I mean, the way you're able to follow through ideas, and it does feel like a. That's why I was asking you if you sketched this stuff out before, because like certain sound palettes appear, and you follow through that sound palette for a while, that idea, and then it morphs,
right?
And that it's a really organic feeling, way of working. But my word.
Yeah, it's just man. How did I not go to this earlier on? But I have to just mention the Residents as a probably the primary vocal influence of this whole thing.
Okay.
I'm sure that both of you may be familiar with the Residents, and many people may also be too. But they're one of my favorite groups of all time. I can't get enough of them, and their vocalizing, especially in tracks like "Hello Skinny" and "Constantinople," and so many. Mark the vocals all across Mark of the Mole. I mean, just unbelievable. And talk about a group that is all about the art. I think they've been around for 40 to 50 years, and nobody has any idea who they are. complete anonymity.
Various theories, but like, because they're around here.
Yeah, they're
just
they're
like,
they're our hometown heroes, right straight out of Berkeley.
Yeah, so we don't know who.
Yeah, nobody
from,
knows. And
from
but I find
1965.
I mean, what a commitment to maintain that anonymity for that period of time.
I know, it's insane, dude.
It's completely insane.
I'm sure we know a fair amount of them,
Oh yeah, I'm sure we've met them at shows or something like that. But it's just great.
There's chances we played with them for all we know.
Perhaps, yeah. There was a rumor going around that one of Captain Beefheart's guitarists, Zudhorn Rollo, was one of them. There was also a rumor that like popular pop stars, like guys from the Rolling Stones or people, would rotate as the residents occasionally, or something like this. But who really knows? But you can't deny the output. I mean, tracks like the Gingerbread Man, and I mean, and also one of the first groups really to start experimenting with early videography.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. As a matter of fact, Third Reich and Roll is in the Smithsonian, I believe, as one of the first music videos ever to be produced.
From 1976.
Yeah.
Well, hell's bells, man.
Yeah, yeah. If you've never seen that one before, that is an experience. Such a great video.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Cool.
Well, I haven't, and I will.
Yes, please do.
Let's dive into Billions of Cicadas.
Billions of Cicadas, 2019.
You have two parts to this album.
Mm-hmm.
Is a cycle 1 is tracks 1 through 5,
right.
Stridulation.
Yep, Stridulation, yeah.
6 through 10.
Mm-hmm.
Cycle 2, Courtship.
That's right. Yeah, this album came together as part insanity, part ambient, and the ambient tracks actually I wanted to release with Eat Concrete as part of an ambient project we were talking about. Doing it, of course, never got off the ground. So I had all these great ambient tracks lying around. I didn't know what to do with them, and I'd already started to compose a series of new, hardcore. Blipvert works, and I said, well, what the hell, I'll just put these two things together and have kind of a double album to try to appeal to as many people as possible.
What did the Cicadas concept, did that just happen serendipitously, or was this something you were thinking about or reading about, or like you were on National Geographic that day? Or?
I could have been. I may have been. No, yeah, it was more or less a serendipitous thing.
Crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like actually, that's not entirely true. I had the name. Sometimes when cool titles, will come to you, you write them down or you log them.
Totally.
Billions of Cicadas was one of them. I'm like, I have to call this record that. And so I started to research the cicada a little bit. What a cool insect it is. What a really cool insect it is. And so, they have this very bizarre, they have this really cool mating ritual. I can't describe it eloquently right now. I don't remember it, but I mean, just in some parts of the world, like a chorus of cicadas is deafening.
Yeah.
It's too much.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of like what maybe my music might be deafening or just hard to listen to. But so there's the stridulation aspect of the cicada, rubbing their wings together, and then they got the resonant body, so that fit perfectly with the description of those 5 first tracks, and then Courtship, is sort of tenderness at a higher resolution, as I think I say within the album description. But it came across pretty well, and actually to kind of tie into what you wanted to address about the visual art, Mark. This is one of the first albums that features my artwork on the cover.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Yeah. And you do present this as a graphic score, or no? Yep. Or is it just your art?
Yep.
Okay.
It's a graphic score. It's called We See Roses, and it is part of a 3-part series called Lepidoptery Panels, which focuses on butterflies. And I actually had it performed at the University of Alberta with the new music ensemble they have up there.
Yeah.
And this came out, really well. I mean, this was a score that I just kept going on it, and it just developed and developed and developed, and it came out really well.
I mean, it's a beautiful, fascinating score. I mean, just as a piece of visual art is super. It's very, very strong.
Oh yeah.
So
Well,
wait,
thanks.
just to be clear, like the piece that the album cover is not on this album.
No. This was no.
Yeah.
No. Yeah.
Yeah, good call. But and I mean, you're cool with us like putting these images up.
Please
here
do.
and there
Please do. Please,
okay,
yeah.
cool. Because I feel like right now so much of your work is, married, interlaced inextricably with the visual aspect as well. So I want to make sure that we can like present that as much as possible. Yeah. And if this is one of the first ones that you kind of worked on and put out, I mean, it's awesome.
Oh,
it's
thanks.
really,
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah, thanks. It really worked, and it really came out well. I'm very surprised, and I never thought that I could ever do anything like this, and
Yeah.
now I have, and so it's bodes well for the future, I think.
Yeah, there's a lot of, even just like if you're thinking about this as your first foray into like graphic score, you can see your the way that you've twisted around the idea of a music staff. The notes are there, and then the interpolation of the butterflies and everything. Mm-hmm. It seems like that would be hard to learn how to do up front. Just like technically, I'm not sure what you were using to do this, but I just see a lot of like these like sort of like the dementing of the music staff, and it just sort of melts away here and there, twists around here and there, and it seems like there's a lot of techniques that I don't know. It looks like a really technical piece to me, but I don't know what your experience was like with that.
It's not really technical in the sense that you have to do lots of really dynamic improvisation with it. I mean, it's more or less interpretive.
I meant, sorry, let me, to clarify, technically difficult to create the actual visual art. That looks difficult to me.
Actually, interestingly enough, going back to what Bob, you said a while back about, it's like, learning guitar and learning all the different, a lot of different influence. There's a lot of different things coming through as far as how did you learn how to play guitar like that, or like in a certain way. One of the things I tell my private students all the time is probably the best thing that you could possibly do for yourself is, instead of coming to lesson, just listen. Listen to everything that you can get your hands on. Just listen to everything that you can get your hands on, because when you do that, you start going, okay, how did that person do that? I want to do that. That speaks to me right there. And so from that point, you then jump off into other things. You start exploring other things that are like that, whatever it is that you're listening to, and you jump off from there. So much like guitar playing, visual art through graphic scoring. And I actually had a wonderful instructor at the University of Alberta, a composer named Howard Bashaw, who was my primary composition teacher when I first moved up to Canada. And he retired pretty much the year, maybe 2 years after I studied under him, and I miss him a great deal. But he's just an insane composer. I mean, just a very prolific composer of piano works and chamber works and all different kinds of things. And one of the most valuable things I learned from him was how to write music, or how to work with, how to develop graphic scores. And he taught me so much about the process. And at first, I had the idea, it's like, oh, just create a cool image and just leave it at that. No, I mean, there's lots of different ways that you can go about, and that one should perhaps go about communicating your graphic score idea, your unconventional notation, to an ensemble. You can create, it's important to create maybe sections, there's another work another graphic score that I did back in 2016 called Iridescent Hemorrhage, which I'm very proud of. And that was a lot of the development of that was under his tutelage. And the idea of creating an instruction sheet. What do you do in this section? How do you read it? Is it from what dimension do you read it? Is it multi-dimensional? Can you approach it from many different sides? This really just blew open the notion of how one reads a piece of music for me. Not only that, but the great thing about graphic scores is that they function in two different capacities. You can use them as pieces of music, or you can look at them as wonderful works of art. I mean, this is a really Mark Applebaum's Metaphysics of Notation is a perfect example of something like this. He put this up in one of Stanford's buildings, and for about a month, several months, a bunch, instrumentalists just came in and interpreted the images musically. So this is a really interesting way to go about it.
We had a at Smule headquarters, which is no longer. We had a commission of a Mark Applebaum. I don't know if it was that piece, but it was like a big, like, I don't know how big it was, like 10 foot, 12 foot. Right. Score.
Yeah, it sounds about right.
And we played it. We played it once, but yeah, it was
right. Well, there was something very interesting in an interview that he did. Music created by an artwork or a visual artwork created by a composer, and I never forgot that statement. Oh. So I sort of took that to its logical extreme and kind of just said, okay, well, this is interesting. Visuality. I mean, I can actually do this now. Where is this going? And then from that, just wanting to learn more about abstract expressionism and the works of Willem de Kooning, who I'm a huge fan of, and Cy Twombly and Kazimir Malevich, who's who's a Russian futurist, who's I think is right up there with Kandinsky now for me, and futurism and even the works, even going all the way back to the Russian realists like Ilya Repin and people like this. There's just such immense expression and power in those works. Repin's kind of like the Russia's Norman Rockwell a little bit. It's just really, really amazing stuff. And so taking influence from that and kind of going in directions that are congenial to me, that I can actually do, that are congenial to me, is hugely influential. So,
yeah. And your work is digital, right?
Yeah, it's all digital for now. I'm pretty much doing everything, all digital works these days on either one of two things, which is the iPad. The iPad's ridiculous with programs like Procreate. It's an incredibly expressive program. I mean, you barely even need raw materials anymore. But eventually, I would very much, as I said, moving away from the computer, moving away from electronics, and getting my hands on more things. I would love to do more work. I would love to do some work with raw materials, actual paint, actual canvases, actual materials of this nature. But you need a studio for that. So that's project number 804 on the list.
Well, man, move into Bob's laundry room. He's got a studio right there. He's working on his oils.
That would go over well, I think, for about a week.
Should I play some of the messages about this?
Well, let's. I mean, we're gonna put up a lot of examples of the graphic scores and everything that you're doing, but let's listen to the two worlds of billions of cicadas. Bob, I think you have a couple of samples, one from each of the halves, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, do you have a preference, Will, or like, what's your fit? What song is your jam here?
Well, the best one on the first collection is the Dave Sustrick Meltdown, but that's a long one. That's a long one.
I thought you were gonna say that one. I like that one too.
Yeah, that one. That's my favorite.
I like Coastal Static Fog is my favorite on the second half.
That's fine to do for that. That's a good one. For the first little selection, Zamo Plan Phone with Evens, I think is a good one.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. The others are just.
Yes, it is.
All right. I'll play a bit of that.
Actually, there's a shorter one on there called Frog Pyramid, which is also good.
Well, here I'll just play a bit of Zamo Plan.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And then
this track is fucking bonkers, man. But,
and then we can play a bit of Coastal Static Fog.
Sounds good.
Cool.
All right. So this is Zammo Plan Phone with Evens.
That's right.
That's a very layered track from you. Like there's a lot of threads to follow at each given moment. Like you could be tracking this, like there'll be like a vocal melody happening, but then there'll be like hits underneath it or like some crazy lick going on, and there's like it's like where you let your it's interesting. It's kind of like a meditation to listen to this stuff, because it's like, where do you let your mind focus when this is when this is washing over you? And
right. I never thought of it like that, but no. When you say, I agree with you, Bob. When you say layered, and then again, this is 2019, getting closer, right? So it's like when you heard stuff with on Quantum Buster, and then when you heard stuff on Wax Cathartic, that particular stuff, it's still the same kind of frenetic energy there, but there's a little bit more discernible parts. The parts are a little bit more, you can ascertain a little bit more clearly what's going on from section to section to section. There's still some layering, but it's not as condensed as something like this. But yes, this is very this is a lot more condensed.
This is like listening to a Brian Ferneyhough piece, because it's like, or someone like that, where it's like
interesting.
That's a huge
like
compliment.
There's so much, like to really listen to it, you have to like put it in a digital audio workstation and like loop a small segment of it and be like, okay, I hear this part, I hear this is what's happening. Oh, it's like this. Like if you really want to hear all of the things, or you can just like let it wash over you like you're drowning in a dream or like whatever thing. Like
probably the most, it's funny if you were to take a look actually at one of my DAW sessions, it makes sure. Well, I mean
that's a question I have in my notes. Is there any possible way that we can have a little sneak peek at a DAW session? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, no, we absolutely can. I mean, right now.
Well, maybe. Okay, let's finish our. Let's listen to Coastal Static Fog.
Sure.
So we can get our picture of billions of cicadas.
Yeah.
And then maybe we'll see what you have.
Sure. I mean, I don't have it on this computer. I'd have to go and go to my mothership over across the room over here and.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I'd have to leave and go maybe take some screenshots and then email them to you. So that might be time consuming, but.
Well, I mean, we could always do that after, but it would also, you said up front that you don't want to give up too much.
Oh well,
So,
I will.
It would be mainly for my own personal.
Yeah, I mean,
curiosity.
I would send them. I'll send them to both of you. I'll just make the small comment that it makes no sense. You know what you're looking at. All the tracks are unnamed. You know, so it's just there's just no
just segments.
Audio 1, Audio 9, Audio 14, Audio. You know, it just doesn't make. Yeah, they're not organized at all. It's just, but you do. You know, when you see the automation
Soprano
lanes.
1.
Yeah, right. There's nothing like that. I mean, when you see the automation lanes. You do see the work, obviously, that goes into it, but it's just the solid.
That's what I'm curious about.
Yeah. I'll take a few screenshots and send them to you.
And this is in Pro Tools, right? You're working
all in Pro Tools. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a necessary. I mean, maybe I shouldn't mouth the company and get sued here, but I tried using other DAWs
this would be
and I
our
just
third
can't.
cease and desist from
from Pro Tools.
Well, you never know. I mean. In this world,
hey, they never said podcasting was a cakewalk.
That's right. Which is another DAW,
especially when you record in Cakewalk. Hey,
it's another DAW.
There we go.
Nice segue, Bob. Nice. No, I tried using other DAWs.
There's a logic to what we're doing here.
Another DAW. A logic to what we're doing. Nice job, Bob. You got to watch out for that guy.
Yeah.
All right. So on that note,
we'll
coastal static fog.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's just an excerpt. That
Right,
song continues.
Yeah, I gotta go back and listen to this.
It's good.
It's good. Yeah.
It was a lot of that ambient stuff is influenced by people like Losel, Jan Jelinek, very, very big influence of mine. Two very big influences of mine.
I don't know either of those.
Yeah.
Oh, they're fantastic. Fantastic ambient, predominantly composers. Tim Hecker, I'm sure you might be familiar with. People such as this.
Don't. Yeah.
So wait, what were the first two again?
So it was Loscil, Loscil.
Loscil.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jan Jelinek, Janjelinek. Jan.
Yep.
Jelinek.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also, you can't forget, who did I say there?
Tim
Hecker.
Hecker.
Yeah, Tim Hecker. Tim Hecker's a big one.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know that stuff.
Yeah, it's really deep stuff. Yeah.
Cool.
A lot of power in ambient music as well. A lot of power along there as far as how you do it and the message.
Yeah. Yeah. It's that I find a lot of ambient music to be some of the most difficult music to listen to.
Really? Why is that?
Because you have to really consider what you're doing. Like, so it depends on the music because there's a lot of different kinds of ambient music.
Sure.
But like if you were like what is focusing your attention, and like, are you letting your mind wander? Are you remembering what happened? And like, what is your sense of time for what has happened? Like, does this, like, how much time has passed? Like, do you feel like the last significant change happened 30 seconds ago or 2 minutes ago? And like, how well can you remember what is being developed?
I feel like, isn't that part of the point though? Like where maybe you're not supposed to have like a really clear hold on that.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's another. There's two ways to do it, right? Like,
it's a very compelling question. I mean, Brian Eno has gotten to the heart of a lot of this stuff, just in terms of the environmental aspect of things, and focusing on different projects as composer, producer, strictly producer, and then experimenting with found objects, as in on his ambient series 1, 2, 3, and 4. So,
yeah.
Yeah, interesting. That's a unique way to approach it, Bob. I never thought of it like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's always easy with any music, with any art. You can always be passive, right? You can always let it wash over you.
Right.
But that's the easy way.
Right. Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, a more focused listening experience. People might cast off, in my perception, they might cast off ambient music as relaxing, and this is meant to, it's therapeutic. It's meant to induce sleep.
It certainly can serve
maybe.
that function very easily.
Oh, it sure can, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's funny, there's a electronic music documentary called Modulations, and Genesis P. Orridge of Throbbing Gristle is featured quite prominently in there, and we lost recently, actually. He says that rhythm is a very difficult place to work, and he finds the ambient nature of things is a more compelling place to look for these secrets of style and form, and maybe even philosophical conceptions that you're referring to.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. And rhythm is a very difficult place to work. I'll agree with that.
Yeah. Can be the funnest place to work, though.
That's true. That is true. We got two rhythmicists masters right here.
I enjoy the practice of working in rhythm.
Yeah.
I'm just doing my part.
That's right.
Just so people know, like this record, we've had two samples, and it's kind of like A and B, like the two sections. We did talk about that briefly, but just bearing in mind that it is like, you know, as you put it, the two cycles. So it's a really fascinating record in that sense, where you have like this like mind melting, extremely intense, you know, like Pete Blipvert kind of work, and then a whole and it's fascinating to know now that this came from a different project in the first place, but a whole like sort of ambient cycle as well. And I really love that dichotomy. I mean, this is a really cool and special record, and I'm glad you made it.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I thought it was. I mean, it was. It really just seemed like the right thing to do at that point. You know, just put a whole bunch of stuff together. You know, like two sides of the two different personalities, if you will.
Yeah. So where were you when you made this? Were you already in Canada? Were you at school?
Yeah, the ambient tracks actually were made in Emeryville long before the record ever came out, and then the new electronic tracks were made up in Edmonton, Canada.
All right.
Yeah.
And so that's where you've been now, working on a PhD. Is this correct?
So I'm still here. I was actually on my way back to the States in about 2020, and then COVID hit, and all my plans sort of dried up, as it were, and so I just stayed here.
Wait, did you finish your program?
It was done in 2019. Yeah.
Did you like present your thesis, and are you now Dr. Redmond?
Yeah. Oh yeah,
Wow.
It's all done. Yeah, it's all finished.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll redo the intro, man.
Oh,
congratulations!
Congrats, Brad.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's yeah.
I have a proposal.
Sure.
What you got?
I really wanted. I was thinking about this. With the Lady Dice and the Emerald Oyster Honeycomb, which is your thesis piece. I really kind of wanted to pour over it and go bit by bit, and we could do that right now, or maybe we could do it another episode.
It's up to y'all. I'm having a blast, and I'm very flattered that you guys asked me to do this. If we've maybe reached a point here, I completely understand. I know you all have families, and I don't have anybody, so I can stay on here for a while. Well, that's not true. I have someone, but they're down in the Bay Area. But that's another story. But yeah. I mean, I would love to go over that piece. I mean, it's such a monumental piece that I hope gets recorded and premiered somewhere, and I'm staring right now at two percussionists who could absolutely do it.
Let me just put this up and this up and do this.
Yeah.
And I'm on board.
Yeah.
So, okay, to Bob's proposal, I would like to do that because I think it'd be really, I think it's important to give this the time that it's due, and
there's just a lot to get into with it.
There is.
I feel like it's a whole, like literally
it's
another 3 hours.
It is. Yeah.
So I can't personally do that right now.
Yeah. I definitely agree with. I feel you on that. Yeah.
So let's wrap this portion. And then after this, we can schedule that, and we'll dive in while we're still in the world, hopefully within a week.
Sounds great. Yeah, and thank you for bringing that up and for spending some time, or proposing to spend some time with that piece. That's a piece that means a great deal to me. It's something that.
It would be a shame to be like 5 minutes on it at the very end.
Right.
And you did this anyway. Thanks, folks. Yeah. You can find us on.
You can find me on. Yeah. Yeah, no, yeah, we'll do that. That sounds like a good idea.
All right, cool. Well, there you have it, people. This is our first official two-parter.
It's very flattering, and I just want to say, really quick at the end of this part, that I really, for anybody out there who is listening, the people who are hosting this podcast are. Just monster musicians in their own right, and I really hope that you, Bob, and Mark also get a chance to feature your music on this podcast. or somewhere related to this podcast, maybe, because it really is. It's very rare that I run into people like yourselves, and it's why I keep leaving you insane mess. I mean, it's my. I guess the rest of the world must now know, but it's the reason why I keep leaving. It's my own, kind of inept way of trying to keep in touch, is screaming into the phone every so often.
Actually, the next episode is mainly going to be about that, and then we'll spend 5 minutes on your dissertation piece.
Yeah. It's just going to be about all the messages that. Now, what was going through your head when you left
2
this?
2 hours and 55 minutes of talking through those, and then we'll get to that
it's
piece.
A three-part interview. Yeah, there's more to come.
I mean, no, that'll be the second supplemental episode for the Will series here.
Right. Yeah. There you go. I'm down. I was talking to Bob the other day for some reason, and like for example, and I think Mark, you might agree with me on this. Bob, your knowledge of congas and bata and hand percussion and stuff like this, and shekere, I don't get it. I have no idea what that is. I have no idea how you know so much about it. It's insane.
Well, you can learn too.
Well, I don't. Maybe not. I mean, it's
actually. You know what? I think just knowing your personality,
mm-hmm.
and knowing the types of people knowing the type of personality it takes to learn something like bata. In fact, maybe I've said this to you before, but I think that you would be a candidate for learning that music, and you would like it.
I'd love to. Yeah. Oh, sure. Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah. And then Mark, I would love to do it. And then Mark, the dirty snack stuff that I've heard. I mean, that's on a different level. It really is. I mean,
I appreciate that, man. Thank you.
It's on a complete, compositionally. There's stuff that you guys do that I just don't get it. It's reached a level of compositional ingenuity. A, B, the fact that you're able to put it together with actual music. See, I'm the problem with myself is that
that is the trick, dude. Yeah. That is the trick.
Yeah. I have a very, very short fuse, and it's probably going to be the death of me, or it's going to.
Nah, man.
But it's putting like you mentioned, like that one track on Quantum Buster. You're putting that together with a live band. I'd probably lose my mind.
Well, I mean, you can lean on us.
It already happened.
We will help. We will help with the notation aspects of it, and we can bust that out for you.
Bang!
Hey, I'm always open. But it's a great thanks to both of you for providing this opportunity. It's always fun to chop it up, and I'm flattered to get to be part of your vision here.
Yeah, thank you so much for being on board, and it's been really fun to dive deep into the catalog, and then even on this episode, there was still a record that I hadn't the Quantum Buster is sick, man.
Yeah,
I'm excited to dig into that one.
Yeah.
I'm glad that was a nice little surprise for Mark.
And thank you both for buying all the shit. I would have just sent you the files, but it means a lot. And if you want, Mark, I know you're interested. Bob, I'll send you one as well if you want one. But I have vinyl of the Quantum Buster thing if you want one. So,
hell yeah.
And I need to get rid of.
Awesome. All right. Well, let's wrap this one. We're gonna have part 2 coming up soon.
Sounds good.
And you can find us on Twitter at TONS_FOR, tones_4. Insta, we are at FT4HB. Our Patreon, if you want to give us a buck or so per episode, it was greatly appreciated. It's Fantastic Tones for Human Bones on Patreon, and you can also find us on Facebook, Fantastic Tones for Human Bones. Easy peasy. Will, your Bandcamp is Will Northlich-Redmond /Blipvert, and then also just Blipvert.
Right? I think it's
just Blipvert.
Bandcamp.
Well, I'm looking at Temple of Electrion, and then
so
that's a different one. And then on for say
but
billions,
the URL is just Blipvert.
Okay, cool. And we will put up links for that. Are there other places where you'd like to steer people?
let's see. Well, the Bandcamp is pretty much the epicenter of stuff. I've been horrible about. I need to get a website up. I've just been horrible about it.
Bandcamp's good.
SoundCloud, SoundCloud.com/Blipvert78. There's always some tracks that are going up there.
Okay.
Facebook, obviously, and if you go on YouTube,
yeah,
go ahead and please subscribe to my channel. It's Will NR. So,
just a heads up, your Facebook has been giving me a little bit of guff whenever I try to go on your page. It's yelling at me a little bit, so you might want to check that out.
Okay?
It's saying something like it's not happening.
It's not happening.
That's not good. Well, I got to go check that out.
Yeah.
I've taken it down. I think I got hacked once, and I've taken it down and then put it back up. So.
Okay. Well, yeah. Fresh links, whatever. I
will check it. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, and I'm looking forward to diving into Lady Dice and the Emerald Oyster Honeycomb.
That's the one
for part 2.
That's the one. Very good.
Awesome.
Thanks so much, guys.
All right.
Yeah,
thanks,
thank
y'all.
you.
We'll talk to you again soon.
Cha cha. petrol, when I come from when the wind let the freight, like I fish out a wolf, you're I see the place ready for going into the big man God. Everything has been arranged. It's not a game to get caught. Your way.
Yeah, Bob, I'm Will, and I've been thinking about things since the last conversation that we had, and I've decided that I don't want to do your fucking podcast, and I don't care about your little vision or your little jazz jams or the fact that you live in Bakersfield, because quite frankly, you and Mark are idiots. Okay, you're idiots. So I know you're probably pissed, but I don't care because I'm going to tell you no, and I'm out of there because I'm Will, and I can't be bothered with that shit. I'm totally devoted to the drum kit.